Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you joining us. I'm State Representative Dan Ugaste of the 65th District. My district includes far western suburbs and part of Kane and DuPage counties. I'm here with my colleague, State Representative Tim Ozinga, who represents the 37th District, covering parts of Will and Cook counties. And also with us today is Mark Batnick, former state representative from Plainfield. We are here today to demonstrate that bad policy in Illinois has created and is perpetuating high property taxes, which unfortunately, in turn, helps create opportunity deserts. But we are here not only to point out a problem, but more importantly, to show that we, the Illinois Republicans, have solutions. High property taxes are one of the primary causes of opportunity deserts in our state. They do this by driving out existing businesses and inhibiting commercial property growth. This, in turn, puts a bigger burden on homeowners and other existing property taxpayers, which in turn then creates a vicious negative economic cycle that feeds upon itself. And let's not forget, the ones who are most affected by this and feel the impact are seniors, the unemployed, the underemployed, the underprivileged. And oftentimes, it's affecting minority communities. And what does that lead to? Greater disparity in economic opportunity for many minorities in Illinois. And if you don't trust what I'm saying in that regard, please recall our earlier press conferences and some speeches we've given on the floor about opportunity deserts, and that's supported by the Wallet Hub study done on economic racial equality that shows that Illinois is dead last, 50th out of 50th in racial economic equality in the United States. So let's look at a prime example of what I'm talking about. Let's take two Illinois towns, both located in the same county. The first is Winnetka. There's a property tax bill as an example from that town on the far right. It's located in northern section of Cook County. It has an average household income of over $400,000 and is 1.8% Black or Latino. The commercial property tax rate in that town in 2022 was 7.465% of the assessed value, which equates to 1.87% of the market value. By contrast, we have a bill here for Harvey. It's located at the southern end of Cook County and is 92% Black or Latino. It has an average household income of $41,000. The assessed property tax rate there is a whopping 28.579% for the same year. That equates to 7.145% of the market value. This is obviously a problem and will continue to cause an inevitable economic death spiral for the people of Harvey. So I ask you, where's the outrage? What are the Democrats who have controlled state government here in Illinois doing about this? In Cook County, they've controlled it for longer, and still, yet nothing has been done. Residents in southern Cook County have continued to suffer and watch as their situation is worsened under Democrat leadership. They lived in this area while it has become a large economic or opportunity desert. Again, the Wallet Hub studies showing that these communities in Illinois are hurting. We're 50 out of 50 in economic racial equality. And I know this may sound a bit Cook County centric, but this affects our entire state. Fortunately, there are solutions, one of which is Representative Ozinga's bill, House Bill 4866. And here to discuss that solution to the tax part of the problem is former State Representative Mark Batnick, who's the architect of the bill that led to HB 4866. Mark?
Thank you, everybody. Once again, thank you. Mark Batnick, former representative, happy private citizen. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do two quick things. The concept is actually extremely simple, and you can see how it's actually paid for. I like to compare it to a drip program in a 401k where you slowly put away money, and all of a sudden after time, you have a big pot. And then I'm going to give a few personal examples of how the situation that we're dealing with right now is negatively affecting the state. So pensions, and Rep. Ugaste has a great video on this on his website. That's a longer explainer. But pensions, while the costs of them are going up, we've actually reached the top of the ramp in terms of the percent of our budget. So pensions, in terms of the cost of the percent of our budget, are going down. And what's missing on here, and I hate not having a moving mic, but what's missing on here is right there in 2046, it drops off the cliff when we're 90% funded, and you have literally 20% of the budget available for new spending. So if you were to lock in 25% of the budget, and we peaked out at 29.4% of the budget, I think that was 2017. If you were to lock in 25% of the budget for pension payments and property tax relief, as pension costs go down in terms of a percent of the budget, you get increasing more and more property tax relief per year. And what this does is this allows the rest of the budget to grow with inflation, so no other part of the budget needs to be negatively affected to pay for this. We didn't get into this problem overnight. We're not going to solve it overnight, but it does make a pretty significant initial impact that's going to be, huge moving forward. One of the interesting things that's a mistake that I made when we were doing these property tax bills, you see the rates for Harvey and Winnetka. I actually had a Winnetka 2021 bill and a Harvey 2022 bill, and they said we have to correct that. Sure enough, in 2022, the rate in Winnetka went down. And we have this. If you look here, it's actually the wrong boxes there, but it went from, what does that say, Colleen, 8.65% or something like that? It went from 8.64% down to like 7.5%, so they went down by a point. By contrast, Harvey's, which was already in a bad situation, went up. I mean, you're to the point now where people, the fine residents of Harvey and the south suburbs where I grew up, are paying 3 to 4 times the property tax rate that they are in the northern suburbs. So real-world examples of how this negatively affects growth for the state. I have a letter here from Joe O'Connor, who owns a company called Competition Transmission. I'd love to give it to anybody in the press. He has a little pole barn that he had under contract to sell for $350,000. The deal fell through because the property tax bill came and it was $60,000 after he had it adjusted. So I want you to imagine owning a property that's worth $350,000 and having a $60,000 property tax bill. Another situation. Most of you know I'm in commercial real estate, and I had an agent at my office that's a residential agent contact me and say, hey, I've got this client that has a daycare facility in Markham with 50 students in it, and they want to double in size. They want to buy something for about $1 million, and they want to double the size of their daycare. I said, okay, if you buy something that's a fixer-upper for $1 million, maybe it's going to be worth $1.5 million, make sure their business plan shows that it's going to have a $100,000 property tax bill, probably at least. They immediately decided not to move forward with their project. A week or so after I had that experience, the governor comes out with a plan to deal with daycare deserts. Well, the reason we have daycare deserts, grocery store deserts, assisted living deserts, all these deserts, is because it's economically feasibly impossible when you're charging 4 times the property tax rate in those areas for growth to come, for people to bring growth to those areas. I mean, it is to me just unconscionable that we can stare at the disparity between property tax rates between parts of the state and think that it's okay. So this plan addresses that, and the most beautiful thing about it is it really should not affect the rest of the budget. It's slow. Eventually, in some areas, you'll see a 50% reduction in the school levy, what they levy for property taxes, which would be a godsend for much of the state. With that, I'm going to switch it over to Representative Ozinga to close out.
Good morning. Thank you, Rep. Ugaste and former State Representative Batnick. I am Tim Ozinga, State Representative of the 37th District, which covers parts of Cook and Will County. High property taxes in Illinois are hurting everyone. Families, homeowners, and businesses are struggling to make ends meet, and there doesn't seem to be light at the end of the tunnel. Our state leadership is continuing to perpetuate the haves versus the have-nots through bad policies that are hurting our most struggling communities with less and less opportunity, while continuing to maintain the status quo with more affluent ones. This is no more evident than when we look at the population of 2 communities that were previously mentioned. Winnetka has had a stable population for the past 20 years, while the population of Harvey has decreased over 30%, as residents and businesses have fled from these opportunity deserts. As previously mentioned, Illinois ranks 50th out of 50th in racial economic equity. This is unacceptable. Just as the body has many parts, the heart, the lungs, if one of those parts is not doing well, is ill, or has a sickness, it affects the health of the whole body. Our state is similar in that when these communities are not thriving and being successful, it affects the health of the entire state. The leaders of our state have continued to put Band-Aids on problems while not addressing the cancerous condition that is the root cause of all this inequity. These communities don't need more government bureaucracy. They need hope. They need space to breathe and dream about a better future of safe neighborhoods, quality education, jobs, and opportunities for their kids and grandkids to have the ability to succeed. We must end the vicious cycle of decline and begin a virtuous cycle of growth, opportunity, and most importantly, hope. We can all agree we want people from all communities to have the opportunity to succeed. The current majority needs to stop bickering and playing political games and start offering solutions to fix our problems. That is why we have introduced House Bill 4866. The biggest driver of our property tax bills are school districts. This is often 50 to 70% of the property tax bill. This legislation would create the Education Property Tax Relief Fund. This fund would be established by the Illinois Board of Education and would award property relief grants to qualifying school districts in the state, which is so desperately needed. Relief grants would be allocated on a per-pupil basis, and the property tax levy would be required to be reduced by the same amount as the grants given by the state. Once fully implemented, some districts would see up to a 50% decrease in their property tax levy. Property tax in these areas will decline, which will reignite economic opportunity in these areas and spark growth, which will be good for everyone. I'm calling on my colleagues across the aisle to come to the table and work with us on property tax relief. This will lift up all individuals, communities, and businesses across the state, and I look forward to bipartisan support on this legislation. I'm confident this legislation will create real change for the people of Illinois who are struggling to make ends meet. This policy will build a foundation for the next generation, our kids and our grandkids, to succeed for generations to come. Most importantly, this plan creates hope and hope for a brighter future in the state of Illinois. Thank you.
We'll take any questions that you guys might have.
Can you reiterate how you're gonna pay for stuff if property taxes are lowered?
So pensions are a declining percentage of the budget. So think about it this way. If you have a mortgage that's $1,000 a month, and that's essentially what our unfunded pension liability is it's a mortgage. That payment stays flat. The P&I part of the payment stays flat. As your income goes up, that becomes a declining percentage of your budget. That's what's happening right here. So if you look at this right here, there's essentially nothing to pay for. As the pension payment decreases, this is what it would have been. This is all open up for new spending. And that's part of the reasons why we've been able to spend on things that we hadn't been spending on the last couple of years, is because pension payments have decreased as a percentage of the budget. There's a bunch of reasons for it. It's explained in the video, but making the payments, the buyout was helpful. The tier 2 obviously being instituted for a long time. But really the biggest one, and this is, I was studying the last budget when I was here and looking at the impact of inflation on our budget. And inflation dramatically helps debtors because you're paying back with a cheaper dollar. So it's a little wonky, but inflation really sparked what we can do now. It sparked the opening because think about it this way. Our mortgage on our unfunded liability is $10 billion. $10 billion on a $40 billion budget, which we had just a few years ago, is 25% of the budget. $10 billion payment on a $50 billion budget is only 20% of the budget. So that 5% of the budget is what's been opened up for new savings. Now, there's a lot of ways you can spend it. We contend that one of the best ways that you can spend it is on property tax relief so that you can heal some of these communities. Frankly, I think it would be one of the best anti-violence programs you could do would be to bring economic growth back to some of these communities that are struggling.